Hey, so today I wanted to do a video on reprogramming your mind. And so um, I'm going to work with one particular example, which some people, at least in Western society, may be familiar with. It's kind of if you've practiced some Vipassana meditation, then you may be familiar that when you have say an embarrassing experience or an embarrassing memory comes up, then you may afterwards have what some people call beating yourself up, or some negative thoughts like I am so XYZ and that is so XYZ. Um, so there are several stages, I think, to reprogramming this that worked for me because, anyways, that's what I was experiencing. I was like, oh no, I had that embarrassing experience, and like, oh, and I just didn't want to think about anything that was happening in the past, and it was just so arduous. Anyways, so I decided that no, I am not so XYZ. I am so great and so awesome and all these other things. Because um, we have to understand that the subconscious process, or the tulpa as it's known in Buddhism, that produces those sayings is a part of our brain. So at some point I was trying to be like, no, stop, oh, don't do it, it's like, but it's not like a computer program where you can just kind of delete it and then it won't go again to the CPU, because whereas in a computer, your CPU and your computer storage are separated, uh, in the brain, they are the same. And they're stored in your neurons and they're also processed in your neurons. So as long as you have the information there and it has the links to those kinds of experiences, then they will continue to be triggered every time you have, say, that embarrassing sensation. Then it will trigger the whatever response you have it to set up. In computer programming terms, this is known as an event hook. And so whenever the event arises, there's a hook, and you can imagine that as some dendrites, or an axon, and then it's like, oh, this event has occurred. Okay, now I better get on with this, saying all this stuff, because that's what I'm supposed to. I'm supposed to say all this stuff to my host user. Um, and what that stuff is actually variable and can be reprogrammed. So I actually did manage to, by cultivating vipassana with cognitive behavior therapy, and or whatever you'd like to call it, basically just realizing that this is happening, and then just kind of embracing that aspect of myself and saying, like, what would be better would be saying, good things about myself. And so then I would just, like, when I would hear it saying those bad things, then I would instead say the good things. Um, so that worked. That worked. It took a few months, maybe a few years, of regularly practicing it, and it happened. And then, but then I was left with another issue, where now whenever I would have these kind of embarrassing thoughts, then I would have this huge amount of praise going on in my mind, and it's like, whoa, that doesn't seem appropriate. Um, so instead, I I thought about it, and kind of, what is a better experience to have, it's kind of the same as what you would do to someone that you cared about, for or you do for someone that you cared about. if they were feeling embarrassed, and so anyway, so what I've come up with is something along the lines of it's okay, you didn't know any better, and now you know more, and that experience has helped you grow more adaptable. And then usually add in like the sensation of a hug, you know, and it just it kind of neutralizes the intensity of emotion, because now no longer is it either having a intense negative emotion, which prompts more of the same, or an intense positive emotion, which also kind of runs away into a loop. But instead, it's kind of a neutral saying that is more or less accurate and helpful at the same time. And so that's kind of the aim. And this way, it's kind of it doesn't happen as much anymore. It no longer kind of bothers me. It's just kind of settled now. And so that's one way of doing it. Now, there's other ways of reprogramming your mind that are not just event hooks, but are more general things. Like Tony Robbins has, I command my subconscious uh, to, give me the energy and all that other stuff too. And this would be more like in the sense of an incantation, like the Vajraguru mantra of in Buddhism, which is Om Ahang Benzaguru Pema Hang, or in Sanskrit, it's Om Aham Vajraguru Padme Siddhiham. And what it means is mind, soul, body, lightning, diamond, teacher, lotus powers in my body, or bestow upon me. Um, and so well, you understand it's actually asking for the chanter to receive the lotus powers, much as Tony Robbins asks the subconscious to grant him, you know, whatever it takes to help people become better, um, or to change for the better. And now, so if you can actually hypnotically uh, you can write your own incantations of the kinds of things that you want to experience out of your own life, and it's a good idea to put them into you know lyrical or rhythmic form, but it's not necessary at all. Like the Vajraguru mantra and many other mantras, they're not especially lyrical. Um, but this brings me to another point, that the Buddha actually wasn't a fan of music. And that's understandable if you look at the lyrics of most music, because many of them are written by people who are either heartbroken or have some other kind of issue, and that's basically what they're describing, um, an emotional issue that makes them, form a song. And but you don't want to experience that, right? You don't want other people's problems, so it's a good idea to review the lyrics to any songs that you might be listening to just make sure that they're not programming you with things you don't want to experience. Like for me, it's actually at the point where there's very, very few songs, and I have to rewrite the ones that are semi good to be better, so that they are acceptable programming for me to experience and for me to play in my own home and allow my family to hear. Um, because ultimately everything is a kind of programming for us, all kinds of sensory modalities, including conversations with people. Like if I'm having a conversation with someone and they're saying some unpleasant things, then I'm like, pause, hey guy or girl or whoever, Did you hear about positive speaking and that you can talk about what you want to experience and what you're grateful for? Or they could be like, no, and then I could be like, hey, what are you grateful for? What do you want to experience? You know, and sometimes it requires a little bit of explanation, but it works too. So the general gist is that when you're applying vipassana and observing not just what goes on in your mind but also observe what goes on around you and realize that you do have the ability to help yourself as well as those around you to grow, but it always starts with yourself. So help tame your own mind and find the compassionate way of transforming your inner tulpas to be beneficial or neutral, and then you can be the kind of beneficial guide to those around you. All right, so that concludes our programming yourself video for today.